Space is the most bizarre destination we humans could imagine to visit. The dark surroundings with emptiness always fascinate so much that we all just once want to have a glance at it. A decade ago, almost everyone had a dream to visit the world outside the Earth. But unfortunately, being an astronaut was so expensive and risky that either someone's financial conditions didn't allow them to do so, or the other ones failed to gather courage and fall deep into the world of darkness. However, because of the mighty vision of the wealthiest person in the world, we all are now listening to a new term called space tourism and space colony. Because of these two terms, or you must say projects, humans could easily travel into space for some time, or could even permanently live on another planet in a comparatively cost-effective way than before. This sounds a light of hope for hundreds of people around the globe, as this version could fulfill the wish of uncountable humans. But before we enter space as a tourist, have you ever wondered what happens to the people who eventually die in the vacuum atmosphere? In this video, we are going to tell you what actually happens to the dead body of an unlucky human who passes away in the middle of a space trip. So without wasting any time, let's begin. If we talk about the official data, then according to that, a total of 18 people have lost their life either while in space or in preparation for a space mission. But all of these 18 people were dead in such a manner that their whole crew was finished in that particular tremendous incident. But we're talking about a different scenario, like what would happen if a single person from the crew gets a cardiac arrest in between a mission, and only he dies naturally but all the other members survive. In that case, only two questions arise. First one is how he would be buried in endless space, and if it's impossible, then what would be done to his dead body? While answering the question, we must tell you firstly that there is no provision of preserving a body in the spacecraft if any of the crew members dies in space, which means that if it really ever happened in real life, then it would be totally dependent on the crew whether they want to keep the body with themselves or whether they want to release it in the empty space. But what if the astronaut accidentally goes out of the spacecraft and he starts to face problems about survival? In that case, even the crew members would not be able to help their mission mates survive even if they wish to do so. The reason is simple. Conditions in space are so harsh that literally no one could survive in it. Suppose if your group of friends went on a space trip and one of your friends steps out of the spacecraft by chance. If that happens, then in that condition, you have to say a heartwarming goodbye from inside to your friend, because you cannot do anything in this situation except bid a farewell. After a couple of minutes of stepping out of the spacecraft, the oxygen inside the spacesuit would be exhausted, which would eventually lead to the death of your beloved friend. If your friend didn't even wear a spacesuit, then this would not be as painful for him comparatively, because without a spacesuit, it would be a matter of just a couple of seconds for him to die. If your human heart instructs you to dive into deep space, and if it tells you to try to rescue your friend, then take my word strictly, just don't step out of the spacecraft. There are two main reasons why I said so. In the first place, it's a bitter truth that you would not be able to save your friend, because after a couple of minutes later, your oxygen supplies will also start to drain out, and your attempt for a good cause would eventually be the reason behind your death. Secondly, in the vacuum environment, even a small force push could throw your body millions of kilometers farther, even if you don't have the strength of Hulk. However, these things are so easy to state when it comes to professional astronauts who have been trained rigorously for having a flight in deep space. But when it comes to space tourism and space colonization, it becomes a matter of hundreds of people, among which people from different age groups having different diseases and deficiencies would be there between you, and in such condition, literally anyone could die in between of that long space trip. In this case, it sounds very cruel and disappointing that you would be just thrown out of the spacecraft if you die in the journey. Because of this point of view, scientists are trying continuously to develop a solution in order to solve the problem of funeral tasks in space tourism, because you cannot ignore the fact that death could knock on the door of any human unexpectedly at any time. On the project of Mars colonization, Elon Musk is also thinking of a graveyard on Mars, which would solve the problem of death rituals happening on space tourism. However, if your dead body ever starts traveling into the endless space, then in the lack of air or other decomposing factors, your body will never decompose and will remain as fresh as it was in the first place. As a result, it would not even face a scratch until a star swallows you, or you get sucked into a black hole, or even worse than that. By the way, which form of death sounds more satisfactory to you? Let me know in the comments down below.